Two straight facts. I'm joined by the man, Sav. How are you, my friend? Are you well? You good?
I'm really good. Yeah, it's Wednesday afternoon. What's not to be well about? I'm very happy to be here. You good?
Mate, I'm all right. Do you know, I'm trying to, I had a bit of I'm on this journey to get back being fit and getting back to gym, eating well after a really poor year with my health and some mental health stuff as well. And today was hard. Third day in the gym, really aching. I came out and was in this, like, about an hour ago, I was in this moment where I like, do I need to go to hospital? I'm about to collapse. I'm about to die. I'm thankfully, touching wood, I've actually got wood in front of me. I'm okay. But yeah, mate, on the road to proper recovery, eating good. 3 days of eating good, though, can already feel a difference in me, which is nice. Do you know what I'm saying? So,
mate, I'll tell you, I'm doing this thing called the six-pack revolution. It's not about a six-pack, but it's 75 days. And I'm on day 24 of 75, and I've lost 15 pounds. And nothing bad has touched my body for 24 days. So, yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. I'm feeling it.
It's, again, at our age as well, it's important to do. But, yeah, I was just in a bad cycle and had to fix up. So, lots to talk about, people. Lots to go through today. We're looking at Mark Golbridge. And I will say this. He's been attacked again, not so much online, but attacked again on the airways by ex-professionals and what you would call like ex-pro pundits. The fan channel world, fan media ripped into again, and we're going to discuss that in more detail. We're going to be looking at these big claims from the mainstream media that football fans are the reason that Harry Maguire is being, in their words, bullied, and he's been getting criticism that he doesn't deserve, and they're completely innocent of any wrongdoing. It's all on us, the fans. We're going to be looking at Arsenal. It's been confirmed they were cheated at the weekend. And we're going to go into that in more detail. We're talking the title race on this show today and a player of the season so far debate, with many people telling me that it's James Maddison who deserves it. So viewers, you need to stay with us. Stay in the chat. Please make sure like buttons have been hit and that you're subscribing and the bell notifications are turned on as well. And by the way, a lot of love for you, by the way, Sav. Strasbourg Steve straight in here says, big up, guys. Love the show, which is good. And I sent that message last week. A man like Roms was like, is Sav come back on? I said, yeah, I'll be on every week. It's like, oh, I'm so happy. A lot of people have had a lot of messages about you this week, and please bring Sav back on. So glad to have you here, mate.
No, listen, glad to be here. I suppose it all depends on what I say about what club, doesn't it? Someone's going to love it, someone's going to hate it, and it is what it is. But no, listen, always enjoy the one-on-ones better than the panel shows. So yeah, mate, listen, let's get into it. Let's see who we can upset and make happy this week.
Well, let's look at it. The first thing I wanted to start on was this. Goldbridge has tweeted today and said that Danny Murphy taking a pop at me on TalkSport because I'm just a fan who knows nothing and that he's played the game. He said, what's your address, Danny? I'll send you a Manscaped starter pack. And then when you find your balls, we'll talk. So a nice clap back there from Goldbridge, there's no doubt. But essentially, and I'm not exactly sure yet, I've seen a lot of replies to this tweet, exactly what the context of the conversation was. But the overarching element is Danny Murphy's had a pop. He's attacked Mark Golbridge and basically has alluded to, well, you've got all this influence, you've got all this power, you say all these things, but you didn't play the game. You don't know as much as us. So maybe you should keep your mouth shut a little bit. And this isn't the first time that fan media, people in our industry, and listen, Mark Golbridge, as far as I'm concerned, he is at the top of the tree. He's the biggest, he's the best, he's the most influential. It's as simple and as straightforward as that. But attacked again by the mainstream media, just because, in my opinion, he has far more influence than 99.9% of all professional pundits. It's crazy to me.
Yeah, look, I've always said this, right, is, when you have a football debate and people come back at you and the first thing they'll say is, oh, well, so-and-so said this, I'll believe them over you. What I've always liked about that, and ironically I've liked it, Terry, is when you look at it, pundits, ex-footballers are just football fans that were good at football, right? They were very good at football, right? We've all had mates who at school, oh, will he make it? Will he not? What? So because he just didn't make it, it means his opinion is worse than the guy that did make it? Look, listen, if every single pundit's opinion was right, there'd be no BT Sport or TNT, whatever it's called now. There'd be no Gillette Soccer Saturday. There'd be no Match of the Day because they'd all agree. The fact that they all disagree, the fact that everyone loves tuning in to watch Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher have a Barney with each other, or Mika Richards and Roy Keane, they all disagree because they're all just football fans with their own opinion on the game. Now, Mark Golbridge is an easy target. Mark Golbridge, like you said, he's at the top of the tree in terms of YouTube world. Essentially, he's just a football fan that's done absolutely brilliantly in putting out his opinion to the masses. There's nothing wrong with that. But this whole we've gone into this era now of you don't know ball. This person doesn't understand football. I don't believe in all this at all. Look, for me, I see a lot of pundits chat a lot of nonsense. I see a lot of pundits, I think, chat really, really good stuff. It's personal opinion, right? Look before the Spurs-Arsenal game. Look at Paul Merson. Paul Merson comes out with Arsenal are going to destroy Spurs, right? What? Look how good Merson was as a footballer, Terry. Forget who you support. Paul Merson was a genius of a footballer. Does that mean his opinion's right? No. You know what I mean? Does it mean Gary Neville's opinion is right, when he couldn't manage a team to save his life? So I do think people are getting crazy. Mark Golbridge is welcome to his opinion. There are people, I think, have crazy opinions. I'll call it like people like Rory Jennings has the worst football opinions ever. But that's nothing to do with him being a YouTuber. I just think that man has got crap opinions all over the place. But fair play, they're his opinions and he's sticking to them. Nothing to do with ex-footballer or not.
Yeah, I look at it from this, but there's a lot of jealousy. And what I've seen, and it's not just what I've seen. I 2 years ago at the Football Content Awards, Sky Sports won an award because there are awards at the Football Content Awards for non-fan media.
Yeah.
And I was up on stage and I was presenting the show, giving out the awards with Rocket, who used to be on Soccer AM. And when Sky Sports came up, they got booed the whole way up. I couldn't, still to this day, I don't quite understand why the whole room booed them. It didn't really make sense, but they did. They booed them. And he got up on stage and I shook a few of the execs' hands and they said, oh. And when they were up on stage, they said, we want to thank you because their words were, and I'm paraphrasing here, but the way we now conduct ourselves, the type of content that we make is a mirror image of what you all as fans created. And that is what they've done. TalkSport, Sky Sport, they've kept a lot of what was traditional, but then they've seen what works in the fan media world and they've gone, right, we'll have some of that, we'll have some of this. Their Saturday social show is essentially, if you got rid of the influencers that were on it, nobody would watch it. As an example, TalkSport themselves, who Danny Murphy was on when he went at Goldbridge, have given Mark Golbridge his own show, and he's the only person, as far as I'm aware, educate me if I'm wrong, his show is called the Mark Golbridge Show. Everybody else's show on there, it's TalkSport Drive, or it's I mean, Hawksby and Jakey, Hawksby and Jakey, a few of them, but a lot of the big shows, Alan Brazil's Morning Breakfast, that man's been on there about 20 years and he's got his name on it, right? And he's Alan Brazil, who was a big name 20 years ago in football. But Mark Golbridge is not a quote-unquote professional journalist. He's not an ex-pro footballer. And straight away, as soon as he got a job at TalkSport, he had his own show in his own name. How many people get that? Not very many at all. And there is a jealousy. There is a jealousy amongst people for what. But me and Mark years ago had our beefs, and it was never about jealousy. There were some things that I said, things he did. We've crossed that now. We had our conversation, never pretending to be mates. But I have nothing but admiration for what he has achieved, how he's changed his family's life, the businesses that he's grown, the influence that he has. And you see a lot of people, especially ex-pros, bitter about it. And listen, I love hearing stories from ex-pros, insight to what goes on in dressing rooms. That type of thing is valuable. But their opinions sometimes have nothing to do with that. It's just, I think X and this is why. Well, I disagree. And the fact that I didn't kick a ball is irrelevant because if we all had that outlook on life, none of the general public, unless you work there, could challenge the banking system. We could never challenge the police. We could never challenge government. You could never tell the builder that around your house.
Unless you're in it.
Yeah,
you can't have an opinion.
I don't think you're plastering that wall properly. Nothing. You're plasterer, no, but it's dripping everywhere. Like it cracks everywhere. I don't think you've painted that door properly. Why? Because there's loads of patches missing. You don't need to be a professional at a particular industry to critique it and criticize it. And fans have always done what we all do on social media. The difference is now we have a platform. And this is what I think irks a lot of people. Now, Daniel Murphy's probably rich, but there's a lot of people who have studied journalism, worked in it their whole lives, and they earn a fraction of the money that some of these big YouTube stars, these big social media stars make. And they are bitter and they are jealous and they attack. And for me, I'll always stand up, even if it's a content creator I don't watch or one I don't particularly like, or, you know, there's not many like that, but I'll always defend the industry I'm in, because I think what we have all collectively, with people like Don Robbie, Mark Golbridge, Redmen TV, have innovated and created from almost day dot. It's something beautiful to behold. It's an industry that 10 years ago didn't exist, and nobody, not really, I think it just started. Nobody ever thought would take off. Now multiple people have full-time jobs in it, and it's only growing. And for it to be attacked, I'm always going to stand there, and I'm always going to defend people like Mark from the mainstream media, basically saying your opinion's worth less than mine because I played the game. I think that's wrong. Very wrong.
Listen, I agree with you, whether it's Mark Golbridge or anyone else. I just think it all stems from, again, it's this biased nature. How many football ex-pundits are so biased? You know, you'll get the Liverpool guys that will go on, it's all Liverpool. The Arsenal ones that go on, it's all Arsenal, Tottenham, so forth, so forth, so forth. At the end of the day, it's like anything. You've got the people you like to watch, the people you don't. You've got the opinions you like, the opinions you don't. And let's be fair, Terry, 9 times out of 10, why is a pundit bad? In a person's opinion, a pundit is bad because their opinions are different to yours, right? Essentially, let's be really honest. If I watch, I'm not saying any of these people, for example, if I watch a panel show with Graham Souness, Roy Keane, and Jamie Redknapp, right? I'm going to watch that debate and I'm going to go, oh, he talks nonsense. And the one I think talks nonsense is going to be the one that I'm thinking, don't disagree. I don't agree with you there, but I agree with those two. That's human nature. It's nothing to do with did they play the game.
Do you want to know what's funny?
Madness.
A lot of people don't like. There's actually a comment here that says he has the right to an opinion. So why is Jamie O'Hara a pundit? He was a shit. I actually don't think Jamie O'Hara was a bad footballer. I just don't. I would love to talk to him about this. I think when he first broke through at Spurs, I thought he was all right. But
he was all right. Yeah.
I actually like Jamie O'Hara as a pundit because he doesn't talk about it as I'm an ex-pro. He speaks purely as a fan and he has fun with it. That's why I like him. He says things I disagree with, but I actually enjoy him because I don't think he's taking it overly. He's taking his job seriously, but he doesn't take himself too seriously. And I think that's really key. But this thing here from King Cantona that says they are right on Goldbridge and the likes of Terry, who perpetuate hate and hatred of players. The fan channels are the same as the game internet. It's a double-edged sword. They're the good and the bad. But again, you say we perpetuate hate. Just for giving an opinion is not perpetuating hate. We're not saying hateful things about people. Yes, we'll have our rants and we'll have our moans, but that isn't perpetuating hate. We're not asking people to abuse anybody. In fact, I've done multiple shows, King Cantona, where I've spoke about how criticizing somebody is not the same as abusing them, and abusing them is not criticism. You know, if I'm sitting there calling someone every pejorative under the sun, then you can call it abuse. If I'm saying you're a waste of space, there's that advert actually that plays. You know that advert that's on when Champions League's on, and it shows footballers, both male and female, and the words that they've been called online.
Oh, yeah, they're in there, yeah.
Go home and things, and it etches in their skin. And I get the only one on there that I think doesn't have a place on that is where it says useless. I'm like, saying someone's been useless today, I don't think it's abuse. If someone's had a bad game, they're being useless today. But I don't think fan channels do perpetuate. Some people,
Terry, we're in that era, man.
People are lying. So where I would agree with it is somebody makes up a lie. If somebody makes up a lie, like Rashford can't be dropped because he's got a clause in his contract where he can't be, and he starts being abused on the back of that lie, that's true. But if you can show me an example where I have done that or Mark has done that, I'll stand corrected. I don't think you can. I don't remember ever making up a lie. If I read something in a newspaper, so this moves us on to Harry Maguire quite nicely. The media today are sort of talking about Maguire, and they're speaking about, essentially, is he being abused and bullied by Man United fans and fans online? And you sit there and go, I think a lot of people are angry with him. I certainly was in the summer. I said that I called him greedy. Based on the story that the mainstream media told us, all of them, by the way, TalkSport, Sky, all of them, that he didn't accept the pay that West Ham offered him because he was about 100 grand or less a week at Man United. So based on nearly every mainstream media outlet printing that story, I believed it to be true. I was frustrated. The media are now saying fans are wrong for being angry about that, even though it was them that misreported. They got the story wrong, and that's it. So now we know the truth that he didn't do that. I won't criticize him for being money hungry anymore. So fans are allowed to be angry about things with the information they receive. When that information changes, if you persist with what you now know not to be true, then I would agree it's abuse. But at the end of the day, when Sir Alex Ferguson said Rooney handed in a transfer request, and 8 months later said I actually got it wrong, he didn't, you can't blame people for hating on Wayne Rooney because they only did it based on what Sir Alex Ferguson told them. That's very different in my opinion.
Look, the world is very clickbait. The world is very clickbait. We read something, we believe it. We read something, we believe it. Someone writes something else, we pivot and we change our mind. And that's always been the way of life. The thing for me is there's a huge difference between not rating a player. For example, I get this all the time with Richarlison, who I think is a very, very bad footballer, like a really, really bad footballer. But if I say that, you're abusing him. It's an agenda. I've never understood that one, Terry. You know, when you have an opinion on someone and it's, your agenda. What I want, for example, obviously, you know, I'm Spurs. I want every Spurs player to be the best player in the world. Why would I want a Spurs player, for example, to be bad? Why would I want Richarlison to be bad? I want Richarlison to put on those Spurs boots and score a hat-trick every week. Right? But he doesn't, and he's not very good. We've got to that stage, though, where the media can say what they want, right? We then all react off that, and then it's, oh my God, it's bullying. Bullying is if I turn around, and I'll keep using the Richarlison scenario. If I turn around and went, oh God, I hate him. I hate Brazilians. I hate people with stupid chicken celebrations. I hate people that die there. Right? If I started doing all that, yeah, it's bullying, right? I'm talking about him like you probably do with footballers. I'm talking about their ability. Harry Maguire. Is Harry Maguire a nice guy? I have no idea. He could be the nicest guy in the world. Is he a good footballer? Not for me. Doesn't mean I hate him. Doesn't mean if I sat down with him for a meal that we wouldn't be able to find some common ground and have a good chat about life. I just don't rate players. And I think that's the key thing here. But you're right. The media say one thing. Everyone reacts to it, and then it's, oh my God, look what fans are doing. Well, don't spout that nonsense then. But clickbait, Terry. Everyone wants to get their story out first. So tomorrow morning, right? Tomorrow morning, type in, for you for Man United, type in Man United transfer news into the internet, right? And find one story that is, I don't know, just for example, Man U after Ivan Toney, right? You watch 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 different publications on the internet have all run with their own version of that story because everyone, it's who can get it out fastest. It doesn't matter about the facts. Sources say, we have heard. That's the world now, right? That's the world. You can't have it both ways.
And I understand that. And that's why the media today with this whole, oh my God, like Harry didn't do that. Beckham's reached out to him. He suffered so much abuse. The way fans have treated him is horrendous. And I'm sitting there thinking, but you guys help perpetuate that. All your social media platforms, all your news articles, all your headlines feed into that. And fans get frustrated. Fans are angry. Fans are annoyed. But I do agree with you. Criticizing somebody is not abuse, ever. No. Unless they've got things going on. So, for instance, with everything that's been going on with Jadon Sancho, I have criticized the manager for talking out about it publicly. I think he shouldn't have done that. I've criticized Jadon Sancho's response. I've spoke about it a lot in the last few weeks. Even today and yesterday, there's been stories that he's basically not going to move. He's going to stay in the background because he thinks the manager might get sacked. And part of me goes, oh, it's horrendous. But I've stopped talking about it because, and I said it on a stream. I said they're going after his personality too much. The media is going after his personality. People are going after his, who he hangs around with and what he does. And I'm not comfortable with this. So I'm going to step away from even criticizing him because I feel like throwing petrol on that fire isn't right at this moment in time. And I've done this at stages before. It's like, well, I've criticized this player 2 or 3 times. The manager's still playing him. We look at Rashford and Bruno at Man United right now. There comes a point soon where I'm going to stop focusing on their bad performances. And I'm going to look at the manager and say, hang on a minute. Hang on a goddamn minute. I've criticized these guys, but I can't keep saying the same thing every week and they don't improve. I'm going to move my criticism onto you. And some people online do have agendas. I'm not going to say they don't exist in our industry. Of course they do. Some people, a player can be great for a year and then he goes on a bad patch and then suddenly, I told you he was rubbish. And it's like, you're praise for 12 months and then you're straight on him again. And I'm a little bit more, I don't know, I find myself more of a traditionalist. If someone has a bad game, I'm annoyed at them. I could want someone at my club. And I've had that before. Anthony Martial, I think he's done at United. But the last 3 or 4 games, I think he's looked sharp and played well. So I praised him and said, well done. Because I don't have an agenda against him. I don't dislike him. I don't want him to fail. I just don't think long-term him and United is a good fit anymore. But when he plays and he does well, I'm going to cheer and I'm going to clap. But the world has become so polarized. And I understand all of that. But it's the way the media today have tried to pretend that they've played not a single hand. You know, it was the media and pundits, by the way, when Maguire scored that goal a year or so ago and put his hand in his ears. It was the pundits and the newspapers that went at him. And then the fans went at him. Now suddenly, the fans are terrible for having to go at Maguire. We've always loved him and rated him. No, you haven't. You have fanned that flame for 2 years. Let's just, if we all agree that he's been mistreated, let's just say we all agree on that for a moment, hypothetically. Let's not pretend that you've not played your part in this. It's kind of crazy to me. It's really crazy.
But you know what? One of the things that my mum always used to say to me when I was growing up, she always used to say, she didn't call me Sava, but Sava, two things can be true at once. And it's something that I think this generation completely forget. You're bang on. Your Anthony Martial analogy just there is perfect. You might not think he's a great player. You think he's done at the club. Doesn't mean you're not going to celebrate when he scores the winning goal in a game, right? 2 things can be true at once.
Yeah.
One performance doesn't... Listen, people are easily swayed, Terry. The opposite's what you just said. So you're saying players have a great year and then they have a bad couple of months and it's bad. It's the same the other way. People can be bad for a year. They have a couple of good games and it's, you're in the mud. This player's world class. And it's like, whoa, just like... No one's got, unfortunately, and it's strange because we make money out of the internet. It is the internet how it is now. People can't, if you were to look at comment sections of YouTube channels, whichever channel you're in, you've got really nice people that want to have a general chat, that want to just talk nicely. And then you've got those that can't stop being dickheads. And that's the way it is.
There might be a pun in this, but that's the truth. Do you know what I mean? That's
absolutely, absolutely. This is the problem. You get the people. So, for example, you go live. Right, I see it when I'm in your shows. You go live. You get loads of. You got 2.2 in here, K at the moment. Most of the people in the chat are just putting in nice things about football, right? Just talking football. You will get the handful, probably with a channel your size, 50, 60 people. That they can't stop wanting to be rude to somebody who's on the panel. They can't stop wanting to call you out, Terry, or me out, or whoever's on for anything that's said. And it don't matter if you say, you know what, it's Wednesday afternoon. Those people will find a way that you are wrong because there are people like that in life. 2 things can be true at once. And
most people don't have agendas. Most people don't have agendas. Where it is an agenda for me, is we had this last year with United. I know there are some United fans that don't rate Rashford, but when he was scoring almost every game and some of the goals were brilliant, some of the performances were great, they barely mention it at all. And then we have one bad game, so back to his usual self, toss pot. It's like for me is abuse because you're hoping he does bad and you're angry that he's doing well and you're meant to be a Man United fan. That for me is an abusive way to look at things. There's players in this squad that I don't think are good enough for United or haven't hit the ground. But I can put my hand on my heart or my hand on my children's heart and swear on everything that every single game, I want none of them to foul. If they do well, I'm happy. I have no personal agenda. I have preferences of who I like more than the others based on what I like about football. But Man United's success supersedes every single element of that. And I do think that part of football is dwindling. People it's either their own opinions they want to be right, or they prefer players over football clubs now. And we've seen this trend transcend from America, which happens a lot in basketball and the NFL and other sports. And it's transcended into football over the past 10 to 15 years. And it makes football conversations more difficult because people are so entrenched in, I want my player to be the star. I've seen people love a manager,
bang on.
multiple clubs, love a manager until that manager and their favorite player at that club fall out. And then suddenly that manager becomes a piece of junk. And it's like, wow, that's crazy to me. But
Mate, listen, just quickly, what you're saying, it's spot on, right? I'll tell you what, I knew what I was doing by saying what I just said about the chat. I knew exactly what I was doing. And you know what? I knew because we talked about this beforehand, right? We won't mention names. We talked about this beforehand. I knew as soon as I dropped that in, certain people would react the way that I thought they would react. People that are like, just deal with it. It's online. I'm just pointing out facts. I can deal with it, right? It just makes me laugh how so many of these people, if you saw them in real life, Terry, if you saw these people in real life.
Did you see that? What they just said? Deal with it. It's online. This is what's crazy to me. And I don't know where this has come from. Being horrible and nasty online, it's in their troll world. It's like, this is just normal. It's the way it's meant to be.
Exactly.
It's like, I mean, for me, I just grew up in an era where I understand that violence is never the answer. And I understand that. And violence in 95% of the time, violence is wrong. Not always. There's sometimes where violence is needed. And listen, it's the truth. It's the truth. Someone comes and attacks you, you got to be violent back because you might get busted up, right? Sometimes it needs to happen and you're legally allowed to do it. However, I grew up in an area and an environment where if the stronger, fitter, smarter, cleverer, whatever kids were there, if you spoke to them in a way that was rude, you get a slap. So you didn't do it. You learned to you knew where you lived in that hierarchy. It's like, well, I'm not going to mouth off at him because he'll bust me up. So you just didn't do it. You just spoke with respect. Now, I think because it's online and there's generally no recourse. It's just, I can say what I want to who I want, when I want, because nothing is going to happen to me. That's what's created this environment. But it is what it is. It is what it is.
Listen, it's absolutely mad. Like, I love it. Whichever show I go on, I get the same trolls. And you know the beautiful thing about these trolls. Do you know how you just give them a slap if you ever saw them in person? Because all of them have got no bottle. You know, so like I do shows where I do fan calling shows. And I'm always like, right, come on then. All the people that have been bigging it up, giving it to me. Sava's a dickhead. Sava's this. Sava's a twat. Sava can't take banter. Sava this. Cool. Come on the chat. Come on the chat. Those people are always the ones. No. My camera don't work. Oh, no. I can't because I'm working right now. Well, you've been in the chat the whole time. Come on. Oh, no. Equally, they've got no real name, no real picture.
Let me just say those
very tough in chats. I'd love them to. I'd love to
this as well. There's a few people here saying things like, "Don't go on YouTube." Then we're not saying it's wrong. We're not saying stop. What we're talking about is this is why the footballers get the shit they get online, because we're in this era where lots of people feel free to say whatever they want. What Maguire should really be being taught, and I've said this before, and people don't like this advice, but the people I've given it to that have followed it are like, "Wow, it works." Is ignore it and don't react. As soon as you say this type of criticism or this type of abuse, or when people say that it hurts me, more people do it because it's the era that we're in. If I was to tell people, if I was to say to people, oh, you know what, when people talk about my weight, it breaks me inside. Trust me, more people are going to start talking about it. If I start getting DM nasty messages about my weight and then I screenshot this message and put them online, oh my God, look how horrible people are being. More people do it. The best way to stop it is to laugh with it, joke with it, ignore it. It does go away to a much higher degree when you do it.
Do you know what? I don't mind most of it, right? I don't mind most of it. But in the last, I'll tell you what, right? Listen, and I'm not complaining about this. This is fine because these people would never ever dare turn up at my house, whatever. In the last month, Terry, I've had people messaging me, calling my wife a whore, right?
Oh.
Saying, right. I've had death threats sent to my house, right? I've had people saying they're going to come around to my house and whack me up, right? And the best one of all is, oh, we're going to make sure you and your missus are split up, like one person's already said in your chat today. Now, do you know what? When it's football, cool. I'll invite anyone on. Come on and chat. When they get to that stage, unfortunately, they're the people that I think Danny Murphy, to be fair to him, when he's talking about football, he's aimed it at Mark Golbridge. They're the people that are disgusting. They're the people in the world that ruin YouTube, that they ruin football. for fans. These are the fans that, you know, when you go to the pub, back in the old day before YouTube, people have right banter, having a chat, rah, rah, rah. Now it's everyone's just so violent that you just have to laugh.
Yeah. These people wouldn't be in pubs, but Maradon here says, I don't understand why I complain. It is what it is. No one's complaining. We're explaining what it is and why it is. No one is complaining, Maradon. Calm yourself. Again, that is one. He's a troll. I like Maradon, though. Do you know why I like Maradon? Maradon watches everything I do, every single... You got to think, right? With the amount of content I make and stream, the hours, it works out about 3.5 hours a day. Okay, so I work this out. Maradon, this is why I respect my trolls, right? Let's do Maradon here. So let's say 3 hours a day. We'll round it down. 3 hours a day, 7 days a week. So that's 21 hours a week. In a year, okay, that's 1,000 hours. In the 5 years or so that I remember him watching me, that's 5,460 hours of his life, right? If you actually work that out, divide that by 24 hours in a day, that's 227 days of this man's life that he has spent watching me. So for me, that's why I don't get triggered by it. Because
justified. He loves you. He loves you.
This man has spent I think nearly by the time in another 5 years, over a year, 227 days of his life watching me. I have nothing but respect for that. We have a bit of a banter and we have a bit of a laugh, but 227 days. I don't, other than my children, I don't spend that amount of time doing anything else. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. So yeah, he loves my content. He does. Listen, people, on Maguire, do you think he's been bullied though? Generally speaking, not by trolls, by normal people, do you think he's been bullied?
No, unfortunately, what's happened here is he's not being taken out the spotlight. And I blame people like Gareth Southgate for that. I look at a player who's woefully out of form. I don't really rate. I don't really rate that much anyway. But he's woefully out of form. Has been for a long time now, and it's at the stage where is it form or that's just how he is. You've got an England manager that keeps picking him, putting him in the spotlight for the whole nation to go, God, this guy isn't very good. And at what point do you say, do you know what? Listen, Harry. You've been a really good part of my squad, but I'm going to remove you from this so that there's no more hate and fight. So for me, no, he's just unfortunately not a very good footballer playing at the top level for Man United and England. So there's going to be a lot of criticism all the while he's picked. Bullying, I think if people got personal on him, sure. I've not seen anything other than the fact that he's not good at football. He is not a good centre-half. And it is what it is. So I don't think bullying is the one, unless I've missed something.
Yeah, I mean, he's had some bad stuff that's happened. There's no doubt. What's interesting is watching the David Beckham documentary. And I said this a few years ago. Raheem Sterling got a lot of crap in this country. I've never seen anybody go through what Beckham did. And Beckham went through loads when there wasn't social media. And I think slightly younger, I would say if you're younger than about 30, I just don't know if you'll remember 1998, 99, 2000 well enough to understand what this guy went through, what it was like. And as I say, there was no social media, but you still heard about it. Everybody in school was talking about it. Did you hear what happened? Did you hear what they said? Oh, did you hear the booze? It was absolutely everywhere. And ever since then, I don't like the idea when he comes onto a football pitch. I don't like the idea of the crowd booing him. I think that's too much. You know, the England crowd booing him was always weird because up until recently, we had a few bad games for them. He hadn't put a foot wrong for England in his whole England career. So it was weird that suddenly some dude from Leicester that supports England was booing Maguire when he was out of form for Man United. It was a little strange to me. But no, I do think bullying is, I do think bullying...
Can we touch upon that? I want to touch upon what you just said. The David Beckham, right? So for anyone that hasn't gone and watched the David Beckham Netflix documentary, now when you look at the way David Beckham was treated, right? Now, there weren't YouTube channels and all that back in the day. This man was treated absolutely disgustingly, like to the point there were grown men, burning effigies. There were grown men throwing things at the Man United coach as it was coming in. This is a footballer who got sent off. There were people sending death threats to his wife, to him, to Man United to pass on the mail. it was like, if that didn't make it, unfortunately, so what that should do, anyone who watches that, they should watch that and go, you know what, maybe we shouldn't. Because like David Beckham said in that thing, have you seen it? Yeah, you've seen the documentary.
Yeah.
Right. David Beckham turns around and says, do you know what? He said, I'm a strong character, but it sent me into a deep, deep depression, and people just didn't understand and kept going and kept going and kept going and kept going. And you think, if people like the trolls, if those people don't watch that and go, yeah, maybe I should lay off, when they're coming in and going at people like the Goldbridges, going at whatever player, just take a step back, because honestly, I'm a huge advocate for mental health. And what David Beckham went through was absolutely horrendous. And unfortunately, we're now, what was that, 98? We're now 25 years further down the line, Terry. And I'm seeing it worse now than ever. Worse now than ever. But this time, it's just not in person. It's online. And unfortunately, that is what he had to go through. And fair play to him. What a strong man.
Yeah.
What a really strong man.
You know, look, and of course, some of the things that the racism that Raheem Sterling, Marcus Rashford, Jadon Sancho, after they missed their England penalties, and Raheem Sterling's had a lot in his career. Racism is worse than any of the abuse that Beckham got. Completely agree with that. Beckham's situation was the fact that it was so intense all the time,
every
such a long period. So I don't think the individual acts were worse, but it was the level and the intensity and how long it lasted. And the great thing is, now anyway, the vast majority of people, when you see the abuse that Rashford and those boys got when they missed those penalties, and Saka got, of course, it was a what disgrace. Everybody kind of came together, and rightfully, to protect them. But we got to remember, back in the 90s, nobody did. Nobody came out, barring if you were connected to Man United and protected him. And again, maybe if it was racism, they would have done. I completely understand that. But it was just everywhere he went, every media outlet, probably for 2 years.
Every ground.
Every England game he played in. It was, I'd never witnessed anything like it. From just the overarching consistency of that abuse was mad.
When people are saying Saka got it worse, I don't think Saka did. I'm not saying one type of abuse is worse than the other. I'm not talking about what the abuse was. But David Beckham's was watch that documentary. That was a year of every ground. Like, the things they would sing to him and to his wife, it's like, wow. Like, just wow. But
yeah,
look,
I don't think it's bullying. Yeah, I think there's a differential here. Look, the racism that Saka suffered is worse as an individual piece of abuse. Of course it is.
Yeah, of
course. That isn't what no one's making a comparison here in terms of types of abuse. We're talking about the sheer velocity and consistency of it. What was so great to see in England after what happened at the Euros is that the first few games those guys all played at other clubs, they were applauded. And it got to a point where people were like, all right, we've got to stop this now. Like, they're not our players. But that was for me a really nice moment to go, I do think as a general rule across English football, there have been improvements. However, that was for something that obviously not everybody, because there are a lot of wankers out there, but people universally pushed back. Most people universally pushed back against. And look, Maguire has been through a lot. I think some of it, bomb scares on his house and stuff in the middle of the night. All that stuff is far too far, and it can't be. But this is the irony. The same people now saying, "Oh yeah, United fans, you guys shouldn't have done all that." But you're the same people telling us that it was probably PR and it didn't really happen. And that for me is where lines have got to be drawn. Viewers, do us a big favor and hit the like button, please. Saka didn't deserve any abuse. Beckham was due to the nature of his sending off. See, this is the thing for me. I don't believe any deserved the abuse that they got in any capacity. And it isn't a competition as far as I'm concerned. I think what Saka went through was horrendous and disgusting. What David Beckham threw was horrendous and disgusting. What we're talking about here is the velocity and the frequency of that abuse and how long it lasted for. And it was the media, it was the airways, it was everything. Like, David Beckham spoke about it. He walked down the street and people were walking up to him and spitting in his face.
Yeah,
I'm not comparing it to other types of abuse. I'm just saying what he went through was horrendous. It doesn't, it's crazy.
Mate, it's comments like that have to stop. This is the thing. It's not everything is a competition. It's not one was worse than the other. None of them should have happened. None of them should have happened. No one's going to tell me that. So what? David Beckham got a red card. Yeah. Listen. Do me a favor. Yeah. Listen, I'm all for ignoring the trolls, but now someone's talking about my wife and the school I went to. Like, dude, just a little bit too close to home. You know who it is, Terry. Just a little bit.
It's been sorted now. It's been sorted.
Yeah, thank you. Talking about trying to split me and my wife up. Talking about the secondary school I went to. Listen. Listen, I'll be honest. Listen, I'm cool, but that person needs to man up and message me.
I've seen a picture of your missus on your Instagram. She's all right, good-looking lady.
Well yes.
Very nice.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I find it always so unnerving when people are like, you went to this school and you did this and you're from here. It's like, okay, cool. But, we're going to split you and your wife up. What are you talking about? Yeah. Ring me up. We'll have a chat. Get over it.
I hear you on that.
Idiots.
Moving away from this conversation, I want to play the clip. I'm going to play the clip because for me, when I saw this last night, my blood was boiling as a football fan of Arsenal. Like, for me, it just confirmed Arsenal were cheated. At the week, even though they won, they were still robbed. They were still cheated. Take a listen to this, viewers. Let's have a little listen.
Every game among our group, dealing with the same situations in the same way each week. But of course, all situations vary slightly. We accept and understand this. And this is clearly a poor tackle. And I'm pretty confident if a red card had been given by Michael Oliver on the day, it would have been a very straightforward check complete. But he doesn't. He issues a yellow card. I think there's a few differences. The player Kovacic comes into the tackle with the right leg. There's some weight on the left leg as he kind of lunges in. The right heel hits the ground.
You notice how he's already said lunges, which is a big key word for a red card, but we'll continue.
And then the contact is a little bit more to the side with a kind of like an upright foot as opposed to a side-on foot that we saw with Gusto. A few small differences, I think, that led the VAR to feel that the on-field decision here of a yellow card wasn't clearly and obviously incorrect, and therefore check completing it, feeling that if he'd have intervened, it would have been a re-refereeing of that decision by the referee on the field.
So what about the...
What's really interesting about that, first of all, he says, because his foot was more upright than sideways, it doesn't count. But I've seen red cards for both upright and sideways in the past. So again, for me, that's a bit of Billy BS. But it's the next bit that comes up here. The next bit's crazy.
One. I know we're not going to show it, but do you think he was fortunate to stay on for the second yellow card a little bit later on?
I do. I mean, obviously the VAR can't get involved. The second yellows are something that the VAR is not able to get involved in. But yeah, I think he was an extremely fortunate player to stay on the field of play. Of course, the referee, one of our best referees, one of the best referees in the world, Michael Oliver, will no doubt review that. He doesn't want to have a negative impact on the game by overreacting to something, and sometimes play
that there. Doesn't want to have a negative impact on the game by overreacting and sending somebody off. And I heard that and thought to myself, hang on. So he seems nervous there, Howard Webb. He's rambling a little bit for me. He's talking very fast. He didn't want to have a negative impact upon the game by overreacting and sending somebody off who deserved to be sent off. That, for me, again, is referees going into matches and saying, right, if this was Arsenal versus Sheffield United, we'd have sent the Sheffield United player off. Because it's a potential title challenging, top of the table clash, because of the occasion, we're not going to follow the law of the game. That, for me, when I hear that, is proof that they go into these games, they go into these games and they are ready to cheat. They are ready to break the laws. They are ready to break protocol for reasons unbeknown to me, because, yes, they won the game. And yes, I know playing against 10 men can be harder, but Kovacic deserved to go. And the rationale is he didn't want to overreact and impact the game negatively by following the rules. I can't understand this, Sav.
Look, I don't know where to begin. Look, first of all, I hate the rules. I'll be brutally honest. I think the game has gone soft. For me, these are the sort of tackles that back in the day were never a card, never a yellow or red card. But that's by not by. Whether I think it's a red is completely irrelevant here, right? What I would say is this. how can he say what he said and then follow up with, this is one of the best referees in the world, but admits that he should have sent him off and he didn't because of the flow of the game and the occasion of the game? Listen, I think this is the whole thing with VAR and referees and everything, Terry. No one seems to know anymore. And how are we meant to know? There's no consistency. There's no one knows anymore what is a red. No one knows anymore what is a yellow. No one knows what's a handball. We barely know the offside rule. And listen, the thing is, I don't think it's Arsenal being cheated. I think this is happening game after game after game, week after week. Bad decisions. What is given in the 3 o'clock kickoff won't be given in the 5:30 kickoff. How can that be? There has to be consistency across these decisions. Now, whether or not we think they're yellows or reds is not the point. If the refs think they are yellows and reds, then you have to give them all or none of them. Right? And I think the standard of refereeing is the worst it's ever been. I think VAR is a joke. And unfortunately, video clips like that just make Howard Webb look really stupid. So, strange.
I understand, like, tackles. I think the first tackle, I believe they should be red cards, because they're those kind of tackles where if the studs of the player stick in the ground, that they could be leg breakers. And I think they've always kind of been red cards, those tackles. I understand that there are certain laws and rules within the game that we don't like. But I still want the referees to issue cards when they are meant to. We see so many cynical fouls that should be yellows in the opening 10 minutes not given. We sometimes see 3 or 4 fouls that should be yellows in the opening 15 minutes not given. And then one guy commits a much lesser foul at 25 minutes and then gets booked. And you sit there and think to yourself, how does that make sense?
It shouldn't matter what minute in the game it is, right? It's either
so many pundits. I've heard so many pundits, so many fans over the years go, don't referee the game, referee the occasion. Never. You always referee the game by the letter of the law. You shouldn't, because they always talk about football, sporting integrity, but how can there be sporting integrity if during the clashes between Arsenal and City and Arsenal and Liverpool and Arsenal and Tottenham this season, because you guys are like the 4 teams in the title race, they don't send players off for tackles that everybody else would be sent off for when they're playing against Arsenal? Well, that would mean, say Man United play Arsenal and Casemiro does that. Oh no, we'll send him off because it isn't as big a game. Well, that means Man United don't have Casemiro for 3 matches. But then a City player or a Spurs player or a Liverpool player may not be punished, and therefore they're available for 3 games. You instantly, if you referee occasions and not games, you instantly damage the integrity of football. And that, for me, is where teams are being cheated. They're being cheated because clearly they're like, oh, I can't. Again, this is the irony. This is how you know they live in an echo chamber. You saw Mike Dean the other day turning around to Paul Merson and screaming at him that we can't just stop the game, it's the law. The irony is you sticking to that protocol upset everybody. If you'd have broken that protocol and said, actually, we're going to give the goal, we're going to reward it, might have looked a bit messy, most of football, probably barring some Spurs fans, would have gone, but that was the right thing to do. Nobody cares. In a court of law, in politics, yes, we want our government and we want our people in law to follow the rules because things can go wrong. But generally in life, nobody's against a process being broken if breaking that process isn't going to lead to harming people. Does that make sense? The way they're talking about it is like, if we do this, thousands of people might starve. It's weird to me. It's a football law that, again, you don't want to break it, but on occasions, nobody is going to complain if that rule, if that law is broken because of a human error prior. The same with this. No one is going to complain about Kovacic being sent off. No one's going to say, yes, some people might say ruin the game. But so what? That should never be in the thought mindset of a referee. I need to make this game good for the TV viewers. That should never be in their mind's eye.
No,
it should never be in their consciousness at all.
But Terry, the word for me more than any is consistency. If a foul is a foul in the first minute, then a foul is a foul in the last minute and every minute in between. You see this a lot from footballers, right? Footballers will make 2 bad tackles and they'll do this. Oh, it's only my second one, right? That doesn't mean you get 2 opportunities to break someone's leg. This isn't a lottery. This isn't how many can I get away with? If you are going to give a yellow card for a foul in the first minute, it has to be the same in the 25th minute and the 30th minute. I get it. Some of the bigger occasions, it's going to be a little bit helter-skelter. Cool, I get it. But that's when the referees have to go in, chat to the teams beforehand and say, listen, all right, we know the occasion. We know how much this means. Keep it calm. I don't want to be sending off people in the first 5-10 minutes, but I will. Because a foul is a foul, regardless of what time, which team, the opposition, relegation battle, top 4 battle, title battle, mid-table nothing battle, Sunday league battle, right? So for me, I think they've got to have a real, overhaul on what the rules are. And again, as I said, I've said this for years. We've made football a very, very complicated game. And it never was, Terry. It was never a complicated game. Now it's just so many rules. And every time there's so for example, the Curtis Jones red card, the debate after that, right? Because none of us know what is the exact rule. Forget whether you're Spurs, forget whether you're Liverpool, forget if you're Arsenal, Man United, whatever. People are watching that going, well, there was no intent. Other people go, it doesn't matter if you've got intent. It was a high foot. Well, it doesn't matter if this, doesn't matter if that.
Well, intent's never been in the law, and this is the thing for me. Why I want the audio available at all times. They need to let referee by the letter of the law and not the occasion, because intent's never existed. People always go, last man's never been a law. The fact that there's so many Spanish customs that fans have created that ironically don't even exist. Does that make sense? It's just become kind of like a weird process that people have gone through. And this used to exist in mild industry. When I worked in branches of banks, there was things that staff did that weren't even, they were like, oh yeah, I can't, somebody would come in and go, I want to, weird stuff. When I first joined, I wanted to deposit some money into my wife's account. Oh, I can't let you do that. Why? It's against the law. It wasn't, but it was because they weren't trained properly, and it became a Spanish custom, and they were telling people now it's money laundering. I remember I started and I heard experienced people say it, so I just assumed that was true as well. And then they started educating people properly, and it was like, wow, we've been telling people they've been breaking the law where they haven't. It's ridiculous. And the football laws are like that. People say stuff that just doesn't exist, and the clear and obvious thing is the other one. Well, what does that mean? What's the threshold on clear and obvious? Because unless we hear communication, we don't know. He said there, because the foot was upright and not like this, that made it not a clear and obvious error. Well, if you're saying if we're saying the foot's upright, it shouldn't be a red card, that's fine. But that means any other tackle like that ever where the foot's up, we should never see a red card. But as soon as we do, then it begs the question of, well, was it a clear and obvious error then? Because it don't make, if one's a yellow and one's a red, and now you're reversing that, well, that is an obvious error, because a yellow and a red card are different types of fouls. There is a clear distinction between the two of them.
Can we go back to what it was? Can we go back to what it was? Like, honestly, I do feel it's soft now. I do feel that now the problem is every single tackle people want a yellow. Yeah. Every single foul, everyone wants a card. Sometimes it can be, I'm not talking about this game, but sometimes a foul can happen, get up, play on current. Everyone's like, card. Every time a ball hits a hand, VAR. It never used to be like this. It never used to be like this. And it's making it worse from the fans in the stand to the players on the pitch, everyone. And this is why I don't like VAR. When people say, oh, it's not the technology, it's the people running it. If the option wasn't there for VAR, no one would be able to say VAR. The refs either get it right or get it wrong, and you play on. I miss those days. I'll be brutally honest, Terry. I miss them.
I hear you. I hear where you're coming from. Like, for me, there's elements of VAR I like. I want to get it quicker. Goal line technology. I like the idea of offsides being checked when they do it properly. I prefer the fully automated situation. I don't even mind them checking decisions with VAR. I think violent conduct should be there. Someone throws out a punch or a slap or elbow someone in the mouth.
Sure.
And the referee's missed it. Sure. I think for me, the hugely subjective ones now, unless they're, the reason I don't believe they want us to hear the audio is because then we can really hold them to account. Howard Webb can sit in a studio 4 days later and go, right, spend 4 days going, right, let's look at the last 2 or 3 red cards. Oh, yeah, look, it's like spot the difference. Oh, the foot was up, the foot was sideways. There you go, that's our get out. Well, I want to know whether they said that in the audio. I
agree.
Yeah, right. If it's in the audio, they say, yeah, look, the foot's upright. And as we said in the meeting in I don't know, in July, protocol 672, if the foot's upright, we would issue that as a yellow. If they explain it, you go, oh, well, at least they're being consistent. Nobody would moan. The lack of transparency is a madness for me.
Also, Terry, for me, if you are going to have VAR, it was first introduced for a few things. Now we're using it for everything. And I think that's what is ruining the game, because every decision can't be right in a game, whether you're watching it on VAR or not. Every decision is going to be open to interpretation from depending on the refs. They're not all the same person. Yes, they should all have the same rules. But even with the same rules, you know what rules are like. People are going to read a rule how they want to read a rule, Terry. People are going to interpret it the way they want. Look, I just think that it's worse than ever. If I'm brutally honest, I just think it's got worse than ever. If you're going to use VAR, use it for the obvious things. But we don't need it for every single goal. Like every goal, they're checking for an offside. They're checking for a handball. They're checking was the ball out of play. Like, it doesn't need to be that linear. It doesn't need to be that linear. You know, it can be open to interpretation. Look, it's just my opinion. I don't like VAR. I think it's ruined football.
I hear you on that.
I just don't like it.
Yeah, I hear you on that. Super Chat here says Americans call out their athletes on live TV. It's not bullying. They're making millions. If they didn't do our jobs at a higher level, we would be fired. Yeah, criticism is absolutely fine, I think. Sava, defiant about the title. Okay, we'll come back to the title stuff in a minute, actually. We'll come back to that in a minute. Does booing mean something different in the UK compared to the USA? No, it doesn't. But is it justified? Is it justified? So, for instance, I understand Man United fans booing Maguire in the team if he starts because he's been poor. But when Maguire hadn't put a foot wrong for England ever, and he was being booed for being picked, it didn't make sense. That's where it's like, hang on, you're just doing that for like almost comedic pantomime effect. Terry, Trent Alexander-Arnold on Gordon was silent, hypocrite. No, I wasn't silent. So again, I'm not saying you're lying. Maybe you didn't see it. I said in the match reaction after that game, Trent was lucky to stay on the pitch. He should have been sent off. 110%. I said it. And I probably, if I was to Google it now, not Google it, go onto Twitter, right, put my tag in and write Trent red card. Maybe I wrote sent off. I didn't write that. I've got to type it in the right way. Maybe write off. Might be there. There, I tweeted. There we go. 22nd of August. I tweeted Trent should be off 2 yellow card offenses. So there we go. I tweeted about it and I definitely said it in my shows. It's there. I've actually just retweeted it on my. I'm not going to retweet it on Twitter. I'm going to get abuse on. No, I will. I'll retweet it on my Twitter for you, bro. I definitely said it, my friend. So yeah, you've again watched my content. It goes, clipped ya. You hate Brazilians. Cancelled is what Tony says here. Martin here says Sava's agenda is legendary. I don't even know what that means.
Neither do I. I like Martin though. He's one of my. He watches me a lot. So,
who are the good British pundits to listen to and why? When you were at uni, Sava, who was the one professor in class that you could not stand?
I didn't go to university. I went to the University of working as a DJ abroad in Greece for 2 years, living my life. I didn't go to uni. I could answer from college, but I couldn't stand my law. I couldn't stand my law teacher because obviously everything was very, very regimented and all about the law and the rules. But yeah. I like that question. To a degree. Yep.
In terms of British pundits, listen, I actually still, again, a lot of people don't. I like Gary Neville. I like Jamie Carragher. I think they're very good. I like Michael Richards for different reasons. I think he's hilarious. I really like Danny Higginbottom. Really like listening to him. Really like, he doesn't really do much anymore, but I like him. Who else do I like? Who's really good? The most insightful one out there, Michael O.
Jesus.
Yeah, I know.
Do you know someone I really like as a pundit, but doesn't really do a lot of Premiership stuff, is Don Goodman. Whenever I hear Don Goodman commentating on a game, I feel like there's no bias there. He just talks football, and I like that. Same with an Andy Hinchcliffe as well. I always find it's the ones that aren't the big names that tend to just be a little bit more grounded. But listen, there's some good ones, there's some bad ones, and you just switch on and off as you want, right?
Absolutely. Terry, whose opinion matters on managing, you or Pep's? Oh, Pep definitely got far more influence in swaying people than me. But what I will say is this, and I've had this debate many times with Lee Gunner. In terms of myself, when it comes to managing, will take guidance, and my opinions will be formed around the actions of greats. So my view on leadership probably wouldn't differ too much from the likes of Pep and Sir Alex Ferguson, because I believe the way they did it was right, which is why when people criticize Arteta for copying something Pep does, I find that really strange. So again, although you're trying to like draw me out with your super chat, I kind of stand by what I've said in the past. I think that Pep does. Therefore, I think most people should follow similar actions to him.
He's just put another super chat to you. The same bloke just apologising.
Okay, so sorry. Fair enough. Fair enough. But you get what I'm saying. Like, for me, it's like when people say managers should never call anybody out publicly, I'm like, generally, yes. But there are times, even when Pep's done it. So it doesn't mean it's a blanket rule that should never be broken, because the greatest leaders have done it. Guarantee we cannot, if we commit those fouls versus City, they would have had no issue overreacting. More like we don't want to affect the game negatively for Man City. Listen, it's a fair accusation. It's a fair accusation. It really, really is. Speaking about that game, obviously a very big win for Arsenal. What do you think it's done to the title race now? I mean, you guys are top of the league. Arsenal have got that monkey off their back in terms of beating Manchester City. Liverpool now 2 games without a win. City 3 domestic defeats on the bounce. Feels like the beginnings of what could be a very exciting title race.
Sorry to disappoint you, Terry. I don't believe in title races after 8 games. Look, I don't think it's done anything. I don't think it's done absolutely anything. I think Man City will win this title again. I think every single season this happens. Man City start they start with a couple of dents in the road, and every single season I hear the same things. Oh, they're regretting letting that player go. Oh, they're not the same as last year. Oh, Pep's lost it. Oh, what's Pep doing? I've got no doubt they'll bounce back. They always do. I think that Man City, I said this last season when I came on your show, I'm going to say it this season. Man City have got the best squad. They've got the best manager. They've got the best players. When they start clicking into gear, Man City will win this title. But for me, I don't see anybody as being in a title race, let alone, I mean, definitely not Tottenham. Sorry, any Spurs fans out there. Definitely not Tottenham in a title race on October the 11th. Look, I think it's the 3 that I thought would be up there. I think Man City will win it. And then I think it's going to be a real good fight between Arsenal and Liverpool for second and third. I think that's going to be the battle, them two. And then I think 4th to 6th or 7th is going to be wide open. That's only my opinion. It's only my opinion. But I did say this very same thing last year about Man City. And I got absolute dog's abuse for it. And it turned out to be true. And I'm sticking with it again.
Yeah, look, I understand. Look, I agree with you. The title race isn't in its home straight right now, but this is where you build. So I look at the title race like any kind of long distance race. You have to still build a foundation to be able to win, to be in the title race from. And I think that Spurs and Arsenal, and to a degree, Liverpool have done that. There's no doubt. I feel like the win over City, though, where it is significant, I'd love to get your take on this. From a Spurs point of view, I get where you're coming from. Let's see what happens if there's an injury or two, what the club do in January, how we handle maybe a handful of defeats as an example and bounce back, because it's very fresh, very new with Ange. With Arsenal, they're in a better position at this stage of the season than they were last year in terms of they're more points ahead of City than they were, even though they're only joint top or second place behind you. And they've beaten City. And I think that what's really significant is that most people said, and a lot of Arsenal fans said it, we won't start the season as well as we did last year, so I don't know how we're going to challenge again. The fact that they've almost done that, now there's 2 games to go, got a tough game away at Chelsea, and I do believe it'll be a lot tougher than their recent matches away at Chelsea, and then they're at home to Sheffield United. If they come out of that with 2 wins, to see what happens with Man City, but they're suddenly in a position where, wow, there's 2 years running, they've started impeccably in terms of the points they've got, big wins they've got. I just believe that's going to be enough for them. I do think that Liverpool will be in this title race as well. And I think it's, again, my club's not in it. So from a neutral standpoint, I look at this and go, I really do think there's going to be between 3 and 4 teams this year have really good pushes. I think Spurs will drop off from the title race. And that's not, I think you make top 4 as it stands right now. But I think you'll drop off from the title race. Arsenal to win the league, they've got to do some really good business in January. The likes of Pedro Neto or an Ivan Toney, or maybe both coming into the football club to give them that extra bite, extra goals, extra quality. But for me, I feel like if Arsenal would have lost against City, it wouldn't have been season over. But listen, I believe
this isn't about one game.
But it's
not
about one game, but it's about the confidence that this one game gives. There's a belief. This Arsenal team know they can beat anybody. They didn't know they could beat City. And they've beaten them. And I think this is going to help them a lot.
They knew that, but listen, beating City when they're not at their best, teams do it. It's about, can they beat Man City? When Man City get to January, February and decide they're going to go on their title charge. And this is what I keep saying to everyone. A title challenge isn't in October or November or December. The title challenge is when you get through the other side of the year and people have had their window and they've had their chance to say, right, what are we going to do to get ourselves over the line, right? That's why I think City will win it, and I think Arsenal and Liverpool are going to be there or thereabouts. I just think they will fall short. I'm not saying they won't be in a title race, Terry. I can see loads of people saying, oh, Sava dissing Arsenal and Liverpool. I'm putting Arsenal and Liverpool in 2nd and 3rd. I don't think that's dissing them. I just think every year we do this. Every year, all I've heard for the last few weeks is Man City aren't the same. I heard the exact same crap last year, Terry. Remember, I come on your show with a gal and all them other Arsenal fans all sitting there going, you don't know football, rah, rah, rah. We're different this year. Man City aren't the same. Okay, but Man City are the only team in this league right now, other than Liverpool with Klopp, right? Man City, the only team in this league right now with the know-how, the players that have been there, seen it and done it, the manager that knows how to get the best out of them. And football isn't won or lost in October. Yeah, Spurs are top of the league right now. I'm sitting here as a Spurs fan saying we will not be in a title race. We will not win the league because there are 90 points to play for, right? Man City, for me, this is the thing. Man City kind of do this at the beginning of every year, Terry. The first 10, 15 games, they come out and everyone goes, they're not the same. It's kind of like they're playing in first gear. They're not running all over teams. You watch as that gets into November, goes up a little notch. December goes up a little notch. Then when they get to the end of January, Pep, it's as though he calls them in for a team meeting, Terry, and goes, right, is this the time? Is this the time of the year? And the thing is, that's why I will learn. Yeah? That's why I will learn because, you know, I think Man City have got the best team. I think Liverpool and Arsenal, I think I can't choose between them, if I'm honest. I think Liverpool have got the much better forwards. I think Liverpool's forward line is disastrous. Sorry, the opposite. I think is devastating. Sorry, is the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
But Arsenal have got a well-gelled team that have now been together for a while. You know, this is a team that know each other. This is a team that will grow. They've got lots of good young players. They'll be up there again. I just think that when people are talking like, and I the abuse I get from Spurs fans is amazing. You would think that we're blowing everyone away. You would think that we've got this great squad of depth that of players that have won the league, know how to do it. Football fans don't like it. They don't like it, right? If you look at Tottenham right now, yeah, this is how you know I'm not a biased fan, Terry. Look at Tottenham right now. Does any part of Tottenham's squad scream, we can cope with a title challenge?
Not right now.
Right. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Because I know we're going to talk about players of the season in a minute, but when you look at James Maddison, you take James Maddison out of that team, and I don't mean for one game. Like, you know, everyone can cope with someone at one game. You take James Maddison out of that Spurs 11 for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games with an injury. Yeah. We've got no creativity. The creativity's gone. You take Son out. There's no natural goal scorer. We have not got the depth to cope with it. I think we're on a good path. We're going like this. But there's a difference of that, Terry, and that, right? Slowly but surely, I think we're doing well. But nowadays, again, it's not enough for football fans. It's not enough to be going on a nice journey. It's, we must have it now. We are going to win the league. We are title challengers because we're top in October. Talk to me at 25 games, right? 25 games. Yeah. Tottenham are within 3 or 4 points of the title, right? I'm saying to Daniel Levy, cool, what you doing in the transfer window? What are you doing in the transfer window to show intent? Then I will say, you know what? We can win the league. But this is why Arsenal didn't last year. Terry, I sat on your show with a gal and said to him, if you guys don't do something really, really good in this transfer window, you will fall away because you have not got enough to see you over the line. Right? And what happened?
Yeah.
So Arsenal didn't have enough to get over the line. It will happen again this year with Tottenham. Tottenham don't have enough to keep this going week in, week out for 38 games of a season. So I'm not a Spurs fan. I'm hating Spurs, whatever the fans want to say about me. When I'm right, when I'm right, as I was about Arsenal last year, I want those people to acknowledge, actually, yeah, what you were saying was making sense. So, sorry, it's madness.
Yeah, I think what you said about Spurs, I completely agree with, because it's so new, it's so fresh. Where I see things a little different with Arsenal, and although, yes, theoretically, no one's in a title race right now, not even City, but we know City will be in it. I believe Arsenal will be in it. That is what I'm alluding to, and I think you said the same thing. I think Liverpool will be in it this year. I think I said earlier to a degree. I didn't mean to a degree. I meant they are in it. And Arsenal's start to the season, though, is very similar to the way people talk. And this is why I'm again, just from an objective point of view, I'm confident Arsenal will be there because they've started the campaign how people praise City for starting it. A little slower, in second gear, not completely convincing all the times, but picking up their wins. I do think this Arsenal team, as the games start to kick on, especially after the 2 international breaks. Again, once you get the November international break out the way, you then hit like 3 months of consistent football. I believe that's when you'll see them kick in. I think there is, I've been so intrigued to see whether this ever comes out of Arsenal. Almost, what did they learn from the previous season? I think they came out the traps too quickly. I don't know if you've ever been watched horse racing or gone to the dogs. The front runners, sometimes they burn out towards the end. And I think maybe that's what Arsenal did a little bit last year. So the way they're still winning and they've become defensively stronger. The reason why also I think Arsenal have got a better chance of winning the league than Liverpool and Spurs right now, aside from everything else, is they're conceding less chances and opportunities in games compared to the two of you. If you get where I'm coming from, like Spurs have won their games and they deserved it. But the game against United could have been different if we finished. Luton could have been different. Sheffield United, no, that was different in itself. You got the red cards against Liverpool. They started very well in that game. There was obviously the offside goal.
They were better than us by a country mile in that game, Liverpool. They were better than us by a country mile. Look, I'm not saying Arsenal won't be there or thereabouts. I just think that Man City are different from the rest of the teams. And the thing is, sometimes patterns emerge, Terry, and everyone wants to ignore the patterns. Everyone wants to ignore, they're different this year. But we had this last year, didn't we? Spurs beat them last year, and I remember everyone going, what is Pep doing? Now, this is where I think Pep is his own worst enemy. I was on with Rants yesterday, and Rants called it for me. He said, sometimes you feel like it's Pep versus Pep. It's almost like he gets bored and says, and I said the same last year, Terry, on your show. It's almost like Pep gets bored and goes, how can I mix it up? What shall I try? Who shall I move into a position? It's always then when he goes a bit more back to tried and tested, when he gets the players fit, when he gets back to the best 11. I was always taught, when I was doing my coaching badges, I was taught, right, by a guy called Nicky Milo. Nicky Milo did my coaching badges with me. He taught, was the coach doing the coaching badges. He always said, you know what you'll learn at any level of football? It doesn't matter whether you're doing an under 16 in Sunday League or whether you're doing an England national team, whatever. He said at the beginning of the season, right, if you put your best 11, write it down and put it in a drawer. He said, you will veer away from that. You will try different things. Essentially, when you get back to your best, you have a look. I bet you in some way, shape or form, you've gone back as close to this 11. It may be a different formation, but as close to this 11. And this is what they've got. Now, if Arteta can beat that, right? If Arteta can beat that, then hats off to him. He deserves it.
Is this why fans nowadays go on about, oh, it looks like this manager's got favourites? Yeah, because they do.
yeah. Managers have favourites because they're 9 times out of 10, they're the best players. But
yeah,
look,
typically.
I'm not saying Liverpool or Arsenal can't win the league. I just don't think they will. There's a huge difference. I think it's going to be Man City from those two. Spurs, look, if we get back into the Champions League, what a fantastic season it has been. But expectations, Terry, in the summer, people are talking about, my own fan base, we're talking about relegation, bottom half. How are we going to score goals without Harry Kane? 8 games later, they're now having a go at me that, oh my God, you don't believe we can win a title? No, I don't. Because our front three's not going to win a title, Terry. Look at our front three. Really? That's not a front three that wins you a title, is it?
No, look, I get it when it comes to Spurs. I think you guys shouldn't be putting... I just don't think there's any need. Because this is the thing. Everyone knows I believe in the mentality of sports people. And I think it's a very undervalued and under-discussed element of the game. Everybody nowadays, it's all, do you know ball? What about the ability of a player? That's why we shared an old but gold clip of Lee Gunner from a year ago. A year ago today, he said that Danny Welbeck is a better footballer than Mo Salah. Yeah, but because he bases it all on the techniques that he likes, as opposed to just looking at football for what it is. Who delivers the most in their position? Who's the most consistent in their position? That tells you, for me, on a professional football level, that's who's best. And you probably grew up the same. Did you play like headers and volleys as a kid and knockouts and stuff playing football? Yeah, cool. Yeah, cool. I don't know if youngsters know what headers and volleys are or knockouts are. How many players did you know that at knockouts or headers and volleys, they were the man? But they weren't very good in the school team, or they didn't even have a Sunday league team. They weren't good enough to play. Loads of people like that have always existed, and the same thing kind of goes on in football there. But the mentality is a key element that just doesn't get discussed. It's always about ability, and Spurs fans don't need to put any additional pressure upon these players right now. Agreed. There's no need to. Let them just keep playing. And this is what I think it is. This is my theory. I want my team to be praised to the highest degree. But to be praised to the highest degree, I have to elevate them as we could win the league. We're the best in the league. We're better than everybody. Because I want the attention, my team to get the attention so we get the praise because it makes me feel good. When actually sometimes controlling the narrative, controlling what's being said, helping to control the pressure as a fan is key. Kind of going under the radar a little bit is key. And you never know, that might help you stay in the race longer or pull off I'm not going to call it a Leicester because I think you're a bigger club than Leicester, but to pull off something like that, Leicester fans didn't even think about winning the league until the last 5 or 6 games. They wouldn't talk about it. They were like, no, they just kind of sat there. And anyone that wrote them off, they went, yeah, great. Their fans didn't come out going, you're a disgrace. They all sat there quiet. And it worked for them. It's different when you're a giant club. You have to have the expectation because of what you spent and your prestige. Or if you had a manager, if Ange had been here 4 or 5 years and they spent 700-800 million, different situation. But yeah, Spurs fans have got to, I don't even mean it horribly. Keep your mouth shut. Keep dumb.
No, look. I listen, I agree with you. I feel like we've got to a stage now where Spurs finished 8th last year playing some god-awful football with a terrible squad. It's not enough for some fans that we're just doing well. It's not enough for some fans. Like we're at the beginning of a massive journey. You know, they've just completely changed the structure of the directors of football, the scouting, the manager, the philosophy of football. I sit back and go, cool, you know what? Really good start. Do I see it as sustainable? No, I really, really don't. I don't see enough in that team. That's me. Now, do you know what, Terry? If we get to the end of the season and Tottenham Hotspur win that league, I sit there and go, what do I know? I'm pretty confident I can sit here right now and say Tottenham are not winning a league title. And that's not me saying I don't want them to. This is where fans get sensitive. They don't want to hear the truth about their club. Yeah? I can sit here right now and go, Newcastle, really good team, not winning the league title. Right? If that upsets somebody as I'm not saying it has, but if that upset a Newcastle fan, give your head a wobble. Give your head a wobble. It's fine. I said it last year. I did. You heard me over and over again to the Arsenal fans. The people that were going, oh, I bet you £1,000 we win it. Cool. Where are they? Didn't see them playing up at the end after they. And this is the thing. Football is about how can you get over the line. And it's all well and good being in good form in August, September, October. This isn't Spurs, by the way. This is all clubs. It's all well and good being a good team in form in August, September, October, November. When things are tough, when times aren't going well, when there's injuries, suspensions, yeah? When your players are desperately out of form, how do you grind that out and go on that 10, 15, 20 game run that's needed to win a title? Who's used to that in this league? Only Man City.
Yeah. So for me, look, I understand they're favourites. I think for me, though, when it comes to the conversation around title races, it's who do you think is going to be in it? Who's going to be the closest to City? I still make them favourites. I still have them as the team winning the league. I do think that Arsenal and Liverpool will run them close this year. If they win at City, they'll be run close by both those two teams. I really do.
What sort of point gap? Go on, give it. Go on. Let me and you right now. We've both said we think City will win the league, right? 5
to 6 max.
Okay, cool. I think it will be somewhere between 6 and 9 points. And you know why? Because I think it gets to the point where if City do what they did last year, now there's no guarantee they will, but they do keep doing this every year at the moment. If City do what they did last year, they get to the stage where they don't drop any points for a long time. Right? They don't. Last year, there was a 3-game spell with Arsenal, right? Where the title went from, what was it, a 7-point gap to, right, we're now above you. And then Man City beat them to go further above, right? That's the difference. Can you grind out a win week after week after week when the pressure's on? This is why I'm really skeptical about Spurs at the moment. At the moment, there's no pressure. No one's expecting it, Terry. No one's expecting Tottenham to be top of the league at the moment. The pressure will be, all right, 20 games in. If after 20 games in, Spurs are still top of the table and now everyone's going, hang on, some good form and you could, right, there's the pressure, not just the players, the pressure with the manager. He wouldn't have experienced this before in the Premier League. The pressure with the players, the pressure with the board. All right, cool. What do we do to back you? And this is what I don't think Arsenal had last year. Now, they're a year more experienced. That should work in their favour. But we don't know that yet, Terry. I'm not knocking Arsenal.
Yeah,
I'm praising Arsenal.
I get where you're coming from here. Cosmin says, Sava, defiant about the title, uses...
iterations.
Iterations. Sorry, I can't read. Iterations, let's say how many times Arsenal would win a title in 100 tries is the position. I also believe different opinions with good arguments can change your perspective.
I don't quite know what he... So Sava's definite about title. Use iterations. Let's say how many times. I don't know what... I'll be honest. I think he's saying
if Arsenal and City go head-to-head in the title race 100 times, how many times do you think City would win it versus Arsenal?
I mean, impossible to tell. If City went 100, it would be a different team every year with different managers at the points, different squads. I mean, I don't know. Look, as I said, I've always been the same, Terry. I'll revisit this in January, right? I've seen how many times we've seen teams in great form, 15, 20 games in.
No, mate, I certainly hear you on that. I hear you on that. This year says Arsenal will slap us at the bridge 4-1 is what Scarlett thinks. That's an interesting take. Steve here, Steve Runs, says Simon Jordan has said that Maguire turns like a cruise liner and that Rashford is a speedboat without a brain, and then say fans are verbally abusing players. Yeah, it's true. Gundogan carried, Mahrez carried versus Spurs. Rodri and De Bruyne carried last year. Only 2 left.
Yeah, I mean, look, when we're talking about that, Mahrez wasn't even guaranteed a game. I think everyone's overplaying this. Man City, like other teams, will have to evolve players. We'll have to get players out and bring players in. But the thing is, we had this last year. I remember at the beginning of last year, everyone said they're not the same. They've lost their depth. They've got no Jesus, no Zinchenko, no Sterling. The year before it was Fernandinho's gone, David Silva. Do you know what I mean? Like every year it's this player's gone, that player's gone, this player's gone. Every year Pep finds a way. Now, if he doesn't this year, he doesn't. But I'm seeing massive similarities to this year as to last year, to the year before, the year before, the year before. Man City do not peak in October.
Yeah.
Man City peak when it matters. And that's what football fans don't get.
Yeah, I hear you on that completely. Changing the subject slightly, who's been the player of the year so far? Who's been the best player, not new signing, but best player in the Premier League so far this season, in your opinion? Let me break down the options that most people online have kind of alluded to. I think that's a fairer way to do it. So the four names that have come up the most in terms of when we asked I tweeted out and asked a question yesterday. The names that have come up the most have been James Maddison, Mohamed Salah, Declan Rice, and Basuma. Those are the four names that I've seen mentioned more than anybody else's as an example. So maybe if I narrow it down to those four, it makes it a bit easier. But who do you feel has been the standout so far in the first 25% of the season?
I think Saliba's been excellent. I think William Saliba is an absolute man mountain of a centre half. Top player. I just hate that he plays for them lot, but what a player. Listen, you know me, I'm not biased. I'll call it. Saliba for me has been absolutely brilliant. I think Maddison's got to be in that conversation. I think he's got to be. Everything we do goes through him. He's the difference maker. He's got loads of goals. Sorry, he's got a few goals, loads of assists. He's the difference maker. I'm going to chuck in, what about James Ward-Prowse?
Great. Yeah, he's been very good for
now. Just because he doesn't play for one of the teams at the top of the table doesn't mean he's not been brilliant. West Ham fans are raving about him. He's scoring goals. He's assisting for fun. Mo Salah has had a really good start to the season. Jared Bowen has had a very good start to the season as well. Joachim Anderson at Palace, him and Guehi at the back, they're not conceding many goals. They've had a good start to the season. It's really difficult, isn't it? Because first of all, I'm not going to sit and pretend that all of us watch every club's 90 minutes every week. But it's really difficult after 8 games. I mean, Ruben Diaz, for me, again, Man City not letting in many goals. Haaland's already got 8 goals, not even playing that well, but still got 8 goals. Ollie Watkins has started well. Listen, I think there's players all over. So for me, Saliba would be my choice from Arsenal. Maddison would be my choice for Spurs. For City would be Diaz. And Salah. Maybe, I think Soboslai's quietly gone under the radar. I think he's just warming up. But I think there's been a few.
If you were to pick one person, though, Sav, I'm putting you on the spot here. You got to get yourself off that fence. Who would you personally pick?
William Saliba. Arsenal very rarely, very, very rarely, when I've watched them play, they don't concede too many chances. I'm not saying they don't concede goals. Outside of the goals they concede, I don't see too many chances. When I look at, I think he's a man mountain. I think him and Diaz are the best centre halves in the league for me.
Do you know what's interesting? Your logic is identical to mine. We could be in the same brain right now, but I've picked a different player.
Go on.
Which is Declan Rice, because I think that Declan Rice's inclusion is why Saliba is world class already, in my opinion. The way he pocketed Erling Haaland, no one does that to him. Where he doesn't 0.00 XG. I know youngsters love that, but not a chance, not a sniff, barely a touch. Bullied him physically as well. But for me, Declan Rice's inclusion he has been the reason, and some of it is very subtle. Some of it is stuff that I don't think football fans always notice in games. He is the reason that less is creeping through that team and creating opportunities and chances per se. So I think Saliba's a great shout. For me, if I was to do top 3, it would be Declan Rice, followed by Maddison, followed by Saliba. That would be my top 3 so far this season. But with Declan Rice, I just watch him and the way he controls games at times, the way he shadowed that defense, the way he's made Arsenal a harder team to break down. I'm a little biased in this because that's always been a role of a player that I've adored. Michael Carrick, Owen Hargreaves, Claude Makelele. Growing up as a kid, like watching those players do it, and I was a kid actually with some of those guys. I was a teenager, but I love what they did, and it used to annoy me that nobody raved about it. I was like, did you see how good Owen Hargreaves was at the weekend? No. Did you see what Claude Makelele was doing? No, he didn't score any goals. He used to really. I was at school.
Oh, yeah. People don't like that. That's why those people don't win World Player of the Years very often.
Yeah,
right?
I think they're so important. I think he's been so, and the reason why I would also give it to Rice is he, in my opinion, and I'm going to miss one here maybe, in the Premier League, he's the first record-breaking signing that I've seen actually start well and do well at his club. Most others come in and they've really struggled. And there might be one I'm not thinking about here. I think he's done phenomenally well.
I like Rice. I think listen, I'm one of those with Declan Rice. For me, do I ever think he's sensational? No, but I always think he's consistent in what he does. He's very, very consistent in what he does, and in a really tough position on the pitch. 105 million, people can talk about that all day. For me, Arsenal have got a captain and a leader there for the next 7-8 years. Let's be brutally honest about it.
Yeah.
If he stays there for 7 or 8 years, does this week in, week out, no one's going to care that he cost 100 million. When you look at other players that are 100 million and flop straight away, for me, I think I find it really difficult. You know, Saliba, Maddison, Mo Salah has been good, but the problem with Mo Salah is Mo Salah's always good. Do you know what I mean? Like Mo Salah, it's difficult when you are that good as Mo Salah is, right? When you are consistently good for 6, 7, 8 years, whatever he's done, you have to do more to be above the rest because your norm, people are trying to catch up to. Does that make sense? And I'm not saying that's fair, but that's the way it is. Right, Haaland. You look at Erling Haaland, right? He's got 8 goals in 8 games. Terry, 8 goals in 8 games back in the day. People are going, Jesus Christ. Now people are going, oh, you know what? He's looked off the boil and he's not firing. And you're like, 8 in 8? What? He's on for a 38-goal Premier League season. You take that. So it's, you know, look, it's really, really difficult. I think Rice and Saliba have done brilliantly. I think Salah and Szoboszlai for Liverpool have been good. As I said, no one's going to look at players down at West Ham like Jarrod Bowen and Ward-Prowse. Yeah, no one's going to look at.
I watched every game that every top 6 team plays. I'd be honest, I physically cannot watch all the games of all the other teams because it just becomes impossible to watch that much football. So it's weird. Some people are anoraks, and Stradborg Steve that I know is watching. He's the only guy I trust on this because he sent me pictures where he has 5 or 6 TV screens set up at once, watching multiple games from multiple leagues. But you can't watch too much. But yeah, look, I think that's fair. Super Chat here says, why do I feel like Nicholas Jackson might kill off the Saliba hype? It's coming from an Arsenal fan. We need to kill that game off early because it could be one of those classic mistake-ridden Arsenal games. I mean, to lose, Chelsea away's hard, but to lose after beating City from an Arsenal perspective would be devastating. It would be devastating, I think.
I think that's a tricky game for them. I think that's a tricky game. The thing for me with Chelsea, I said this at the beginning of the season, continuity. If you look the last couple of games now, they've kept the same team with the same tactics. I think the only change was Sterling for Mudryk because Mudryk was injured. I think they're now starting to get that midfield sorted with Enzo being the guy that gets his foot on the ball, Caicedo being the engine and the tackler, and then Gallagher is doing really well with the whole joining in up front, joining in with the attackers and going forward. I think that's a tough game for Arsenal. It's at Chelsea, right? I think it's a tough game. Bridge, I think it's going to be a tough game. I think Pep Klopp, no, what's his name? I should know. He managed us. Poch. Got there in the end. Pochettino does this. He starts slow. Pochettino teams start slow. He doesn't go in and boom, you're amazing. So I think that could be I'm not saying Arsenal can't win it. I just think it's going to be a lot tighter than when I see people saying 3s and 4s. So yeah, I think that's going to be a great game to watch for the neutral.
No, I completely agree. I completely agree. Cosmin says, Terry, you like Rice because he's a Fergie player. Maybe. I just like what Rice does. I've always liked what he brings to the game. So I have already said I'm very biased because I like that style of football. So I'm very honest in that. Terry, when you tell your guests, I hear you, do you really, or do you just do that to swiftly transition to another topic? It depends. Sometimes I'll say it because I want to move on to another topic. Sometimes it's because I'm gonna give a different take on the same opinion, but I like people knowing that I understand where they're coming from. What I don't like sometimes in these conversations is when you might both see things from a different side of the same coin, but there is no respect to the other person's opinion. So when I say I totally get where you're coming from, or I hear you, I mean that from the angle of I don't completely agree, but what you said makes sense. And I think that's missing now in general life, that someone can say something that you don't agree with, but you understand it, it's sensible, it's logical. And you could also yeah, that could be right. I don't think it's not what I think it's going on, but that could be the case. That just doesn't exist. I mean, me and Lee Gunner, we get into fights over this sometimes because he just sometimes won't even see that it's logical that somebody else's opinion could be right. And that makes my brain hurt. Although I do love Lee very, very much indeed. Viewers, I want to thank everyone who has tuned into the show today. Sava, always a pleasure to share the screen and the microphones with you, my friend. It really, really is. Viewers, do us a big favor and smash the like button before you leave. Make sure you're subscribing to the Football Terrace as well. It's very, very important that you do that and you turn on those bell notifications as well. Until next time, everybody, take care. Goodbye. God bless. And we'll see you all again.